نعم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. uh, I can't avoid everyone. Let us recite Surah Al-Fatiha together. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم
أنعمت عليه
غير
غير المكتوب ولا الضالين آمين.
I welcome everyone to today's lecture. Yes, someone just asked me the lecture is going to be in English. Yes, inshallah, to be in English. So we welcome everyone to today's lecture as organized by ISIP Nigeria. And yeah, just the basic rules. Just be muted all the while during the lecture. You don't need to record. Inshallah, this will be recorded. It's already been recorded. And we are going to share the link, YouTube link later to everyone. So you don't need to record. Of course, the recording permission will not be granted anyway. So these are just the basic rules, and let us maintain decorum and be attentive while the lecturer is giving the presentation. There will be question and answer section. But if you have a question to ask in between, you can just use the chat uh, to ask your question, and after the lecture we'll collate the questions together and direct to the lecturer. And if you want to ask directly, that's after the presentation, you can ask directly, inshallah. Yeah, not make it beneficial. So now I will just go directly to read the profile of our lecturer. And sorry, I'm supposed to, it's our culture that we usually, as a token of appreciation from our end, we usually issue a certificate of appreciation. And inshallah, I'll be sending it to you. So, Ajia Abilu, I'm talking to you now, right now. So we appreciate your time and your efforts, especially in the field of Islamic psychology. So let me just quickly read. So our lecturer today, Dr. Abelo, she is popularly known as Mumtaz. So Ajia Abelo acquired a certification to apply skills she has learned to improve individuals and organizational physical and mental health. She holds a BSc in Human Anatomy from the prestigious University of Ilorin, Kwara State, Nigeria, and a Master's in Health Psychology from Walden University, USA. She's currently a PhD student in the same university she earned a master's degree from and doing a second master's degree in clinical psychology as well. I think she concluded that. I think, Ajia Bello. I
Yes.
think this old proper. So she has a psychology, master's degree in clinical psychology, and her research interests as stigma-related mental health, adverse childhood experiences, and the concept of shame in African community. She's a mental health advocate, a Gotham couple therapist, a certified neuro-linguistic master's practitioner, a positive psychologist, an Ericksonian hypnotherapy expert, a results coach, a life coach, an emotional intelligence coach, a play therapist, an art therapist, mindfulness practitioner, and aromatherapist, a color therapist, a trainer par excellence, a psychotherapist, and all that. She has, among other skills, she has attended and featured in numerous training, seminars, workshops, and all on education, mental health, and entrepreneurship. She's a faculty member of SAM Obafemi Belbara Change Academy, SOPCA. I think this is an household name in Nigeria, especially for mental health practitioners and coaches. And she's the CEO of Mumtaz Mind and Wellness Studio and Mumtaz International Schools. These are all based in Abuja. She uses an individualized blend of psychotherapy, such as psychodynamic or psychoanalysis therapy, humanistic therapy, behavioral, and cognitive therapy to help people with mood disorders, such as depression and anxiety personality disorder, trauma, phobias, addiction, and other mental health disorders. She is conversant with and trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, positive psychology, emotional focus, family therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, Gotham method, high movement, desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR. and all. She especially loves to help couple thrive and ailing family recover and flourish. For couple therapy, she uses the research-backed approach to relationships of Gotham's. This method is most researched, tested, and trusted method to healing relationship troubles and creating long-lasting loving relationship. With all of these skills that she has, she's using it with her own Islamic ethics and perspective. She's trained as an Islamic psychology counselor. She does individual therapy, couple therapy, family therapy, among others. She works with all ages, all age groups, and she's passionate about helping people move from where they are to where they want to be. So Dr. Abelo is a member of the APA, American Psychological Association, and NPA, Nigerian Psychological Association. And she's a speaker, a writer, and advocate of women's rights, and she's happily married and blessed with children. So, Dr. Abelo, you're welcome, and the floor is yours now. You want me to share this slide, right?
Please go ahead and share this slide. Jazakumullah khairan for the warm welcome. I really appreciate.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Can you see my?
Yes, it's coming up. It's coming up from my end.
Taking time. This. Let me show you. It's taking time. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Bismillah. Can you see?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. This one.
Naam, Jazakallah khairan. Again, I really appreciate the warm welcome, and thank you very much for the honor of inviting me to speak in IFIP. I really, really do appreciate it. And like I said at the beginning, when you had asked me about it, mindfulness is very, very dear to me. It's something that I really, really love. So when I saw the deep rooted heritage that mindfulness is in Islam, it really, really thrilled my heart. And mindfulness is one of those things that when you do, you know, they say you can't eat your cake and have it. But mindfulness is one of those things that you do and then you can eat your cake and have it. How nice is that? Okay, so as we go into it, we'll see how that is possible. I made a statement there. I said, mindfulness is truly the lost tradition of the Muslims. And some people may be surprised to see that, and that is the core of what we are going to be talking about today. Mindfulness as a core practice in Islamic tradition. So what exactly is this all about? So Bismillah would jump right into it. So the synopsis here is okay, good. So the synopsis here is that contemporary mindfulness, despite its deep and spiritual roots in Islamic tradition, has somewhat been forgotten and overlooked within the Muslim community until recently. Because initially, you would see that mindfulness, you hear mindfulness, and you think it's all about, the secular aspects of it and all of that. The contemporary mindfulness right now, from my own understanding and research, has a very long-standing tradition within Islam, because it involves deep reflection, it involves contemplation, and it involves spiritual awareness. But what I see is that over time, the importance of this practice may have somehow waned away, receiving less attention from the general Muslim public compared to other aspects of Islamic faith and practice. And that is why perhaps mindfulness, as we see it in the contemporary time, got into secular practice from Buddhism instead of from Islam. And I'm going to explain that when we get to history. Because ordinarily, if we had passed this mindfulness tradition the way it was from the beginning up until the 19th century, I doubt that contemporary mindfulness would have gotten to the secular space through Buddhism. It should have gotten into the contemporary space from Islam. But I'm not surprised, because a lot of the things that Muslims have traditionally done over time has been lost in history, so much that the non-Muslims and the secular space will bring those things back, and then we'll be like, but this is Islam now, but this is Islam, a whole lot of things that we have in our tradition that science is beginning to show that this is the reality of it. And then we'll be like, our prophet has told us this a long time ago. But we didn't let the world know that this is in our books. We didn't let the world know that this is in our history. Two of these things that were very, very profound to me growing up, especially when I was doing human anatomy in the university, was when it was Kate Moore who described the fetus, the growing fetus. And the way he described it was exactly, by that time, before there was no all this very microscopic microscope that showed the very detail of what is happening in the womb. But Allah has described that for us in the Holy Quran. And so when Kate Moore was describing it, we were like, is there what Allah has said now, and it's correlating, precisely with what he said. And I think from what we heard from history, that it was one of the reasons why Kate Moore eventually accepted Islam. Can you all hear me? I just want to be sure that I'm not talking to myself alone.
I'm sure they can hear. Actually,
I hear you loud and clear.
yeah.
Oh,
They just have to mute their mic. That is the instruction. So that's why you cannot hear them.
Okay, good. That's fine. Just once in a while, you say yes, so that I know that I've not lost anybody and I'm making sense. Okay, so I was told from history that it was one of the reasons why Kate Moore himself eventually accepted Islam. So we have a lot of these things in our tradition that somehow has been lost over time because we haven't paid as much attention to those things, or perhaps because we didn't appreciate the import of those traditions. We didn't appreciate the import of what Allah has said in the Holy Quran, and we didn't appreciate the import of what the Prophet ﷺ used to do. Some of these things that he did that we didn't understand why he did it. In our tradition, we're told that if a fly enters into your food, dip it in, and then as time went, well, in those days, when we didn't have, I don't know of you, but me, in my head, I'm like, fly, enter your food, put it inside. Why? I don't get the correlation. I don't get. I would have expected that, again, from my own human history, is to say, scoop the place the fly perched on, right, and throw it away. But alas, dip it in, But we have come to realize that even from science, it was important to do that because, the fly carried both the disease and the sickness or something like that we were told. I don't know. So some of these things that we see over time. Another beautiful one I want to say before we continue is the tradition of dividing your stomach into three. Beautiful. You know, the Prophet ﷺ said, it is enough for a human being to eat a little that would just make his spine straight. And then if he wanted to eat more, then he should divide his stomach into three, one for food, one for water, and one for air. Off the top of your head, if you didn't know much of science, you'll be wondering why. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't make so much of, permit me to say, sense. Of course, whatever the Prophet ﷺ said and whatever Allah said makes 100% sense. But as a layman that doesn't understand Islam, initially you'll be wondering why. But we now know from Islam, from science, and even from mindfulness, which is some of the things I'm going to be talking about, we now know why this is very, very, very important. You know, filling your tummy to the brim and not leaving space for water and not leaving space for air is very, very detrimental to your health. In fact, the non-Muslims who didn't even have that in their tradition now practice that as a medical treatment. Do we know? They now practice that as a medical treatment. Have we heard of intermittent fasting? People who are trying to lose weight are now intermittently fasting. Imagine. And people who are battling very, very chronic illnesses, they will tell them that you need to fast. These are part of our traditions, which we didn't link to health, mental or physical health, but it's part of our tradition. So now you see people saying, you know, depending on your body size or your, what's it called now, the consistency or your BMI, and your fat content, you either do a 16-hour fast or you do a 20-hour fast and all of that. This is one of those things that I say in Islam, you eat your cake and have it, right? You are fasting to get reward from Allah, and at the same time, you are keeping yourself physically fit. And all of these are part of our tradition. So imagine the first person who did the science of research on that intermittent fasting, the first person who did the research and came up, imagine that person was a Muslim and then brought it from the angle of Islam, you know. So these are some of the things that we have lost over time, but which I'm quite happy and intrigued that we are beginning to bring back our lost tradition. So again, we continue to understand all of this. So today, there is a growing acknowledgement of the necessity to revive and reclaim mindfulness within the Muslim community. And that really, really thrills my heart. It makes me happy. And this is particularly relevant in today's fast-paced and stressful world. There is no doubt about it. We live in a very, very stressful time. It's like sometimes, I used to say it's like back to back. I don't know of other countries, but in Nigeria, it's back to back. From the Naira saga to, you know, everything is just like back to back. Nigeria, we don't need to rest 1 year. Something will come again. Now there is the looming strike, long-lasting strike that is going to come up. You know, we live in a really, really stressful world, and we live in a really, really fast-paced world. And we'll understand why this is making it worse as we go on in today's talk. But we now know for a fact, from research, from numerous, I'm talking about thousands, you know, mindfulness is one of those things that has been so researched that it's only, like Yoruba would say, we don't need to tell a blind man that rain is falling, okay? So it has been so researched. We now know that mindfulness is a very, very valuable tool for inner peace, spiritual growth, and well-being. And it aligns with our Islamic teaching. In fact, it is from our Islamic teaching. So by rediscovering and placing greater emphasis on mindfulness, Muslims can begin to re-establish a connection with the valuable aspects of their tradition. And this reconnection can be used to enhance our spirituality and overall quality of life. So no wonder that many Muslim apps are beginning to come up with beautiful solutions to help Muslims become more mindful. The first time I saw Sakina app, okay, that was the first time I saw Sakina app, I was so excited. I was so thrilled. I think I sent it to OP, Brother Abdulaziz. I think I sent it to you immediately. I was like, oh, look, a mindfulness app for Muslims. I was really, really thrilled about it at that time. I think I sent it to you. And then after Sakina app, a lot of other apps. What did you say? Hello?
Go ahead. I was confirming that it's true, yes.
Good. Oh, okay, good. So I was so excited. And after Sakina app, a lot of other apps started coming. I'm like, yeah, you know. So I'm not surprised that a lot of apps are now coming to bring out beautiful solutions to help Muslims be more mindful, because we now know this is our tradition. We've lost it and we need to bring it back. And it's going to help us in every aspect of our life, from our physical to our mental to our emotional. And of course, the most important part of it is our spirituality. So some of these helps you practice meditation and helps you become, of course, more spiritual. We have the Sabr app, beautiful app, mashallah. We have the Muslim Mood Fit. That's an excellent app. By the way, I have all of these apps on my phone. So you want to download them too. Of course, some you you pay for the premium features. Some they try to make some of those things free, but well in hand, of course, they didn't tell me to do any of this, but if we can afford to pay, we should pay for the premium service so that we can encourage these apps to keep growing. And then, of course, we have the Mindful Muslims. There are many, many other apps that are coming up, but these 4 are the ones that I have used, and mashallah, they've delivered and they keep growing. So we now know, and we are going to prove that at the end of this lecture, that mindfulness is not foreign to Islam, but it is deeply rooted in our history, and it can be integrated into our contemporary life very easily. Embracing mindfulness can be viewed as a means to merge our traditional Islamic wisdom with the challenges of our modern life. In fact, it is now that we need mindfulness the most. Throughout the traditions, throughout the ages, they practiced mindfulness. They needed it, I agree. But it is now that we need it the most. This century is when we need it the most, because things are getting, worse. Like I said, fast-paced life, stressful life, a whole lot of things are happening. This is the time when we've never had this magnitude of mental health issues before in history. Things are getting really bad. And of course, I'm not surprised, because the Prophet ﷺ has prophesied this, years back. So in essence, mindfulness has always been a part of our Islamic tradition as a practice, but its significance might have been probably eclipsed by other religious practices and daily life concerns. So recognizing and revitalizing mindfulness within the Muslim community can pave the way for a more balanced and spiritually fulfilling life in the contemporary world. So let's go to the history. Mindfulness. How did it even come into secular space? What happened? Mindfulness, which we also call mindful awareness or present moment awareness, is a practice that holds great significance in the Islamic tradition, like I said. But mindfulness gained popularity in recent years as a secular practice. And unfortunately, its roots of its contemporary secular practice is traced back to the Buddhist tradition, even though we can trace it back to our own Islamic history. In fact, far past the beginning of the Buddhist history. So the first person who introduced mindfulness into the secular space, into America, because of course we know that it's America that starts this thing very well. The first person who introduced this into the mind space is someone we call Jon Kabat-Zinn. I don't know, that name may be familiar to some people. So Jon Kabat-Zinn is is, because he's still alive, so he's not was, is a medical doctor. He worked in Harvard and quite a number of very, very big hospitals. And he was someone who traveled a lot. So he knew about the Buddhist tradition of meditation, mindfulness practice, and all of that, because he had stayed there for a while. So he knew about it. And of course, he was a very, very good doctor who was excellent in his practice. And he saw a lot of people come into his practice that normal medical treatment couldn't help them. There were people that they had tried all normal Oyibo, like we call it in Nigeria, all normal Oyibo treatments, and it didn't work for them. There were people who had constant pain. There were people who were at the last stage of some of the illnesses that was disturbing them, that everything they did in the medical space was not helping those people. It was not working for them. So he now said, no big deal now. We have tried everything for you people. It's not working. We can as well begin to try things that are not conventional, the things that are not normal, secular. So what did he do? He now introduced mindfulness. So what he did was that he brought these people together. He, under the basement, they just gave him a basement in the space. And then he will bring them, he will tell them to come in. And then when they come in, they will practice mindfulness together. You know, because, you know, when you are at your wit's end, when things are not going well, you want to try everything and anything. So it doesn't hurt to try anyway. So these people started trying with him. So they will come, he would do the mindfulness with them, he would do all sorts with them. And lo and behold, they started getting better, right? These people who were perpetually in pain, people who were thinking all hope were lost, they started getting better. So gradually, you know, one we introduced call one, another one we call one, and then the basement became so full that it couldn't even accommodate them. So they were expanding. And before you know what is happening, other doctors started asking, oh boy, what are you doing now? You know, and then he went out. So, but what he did, what Jon Kabat-Zinn did was that he removed all of the seemingly spiritual part of it. You know, the Buddhists had some things that they would do along with those mindfulness meditation. So he removed all of those parts. He removed them. He just did the main mindfulness so that they would not ask him, say, which one is all this abracadabra that you are doing? So he removed all that part and focused on the main mindfulness. And then before you know what was happening, he developed the 8 weeks mindfulness stress reduction course, which people now started doing. And you know, with science, with psychology, with medicine, they always want to research stuff. They want to research stuff. They want to know what, does it really work, or is just subjective? And then they started researching about it. And we now know from hundreds and thousands of research that these actually work. So he, like I said, had brought it from the Buddhist tradition because it was Buddhism that he related with. And then every other person who had researched into mindfulness has also researched from the angle of the Buddhist tradition. Now, let's pause a little and analyze this mindfulness. Although it was not Jon Kabat-Zinn that named it mindfulness. I've forgotten the name of the guy who actually named it mindfulness. But mindfulness itself, that word, you know, is from the word called sati in the Buddhist tradition. Sati was what the guy translated as mindfulness. And in Buddhism, sati is an essential part of their Buddhist practice. And what is this sati? If you look at, because the Pali is the language of the Buddhists. So the sati is a Pali word. If you try to directly translate sati from Pali, which is a Buddhist language, to English, the literal translation is actually not mindfulness. The literal translation is to bring to memory, to remember, to observe. So literally, in their own Buddhist parlance, in their own, what that sati means is, remembering of the sacred scriptures. That is what that sati means, remembering of the sacred scriptures. So the guy translated this remembering, to be in a state of attention, to be in a state of memory, to remember. He now translated it as mindfulness. And what do we know as remembering to be in Islam? Literally, it translates to zikr. Zikr is remembrance. But of course, as Muslims, the remembrance is remembrance of what? Remembrance of Allah. So sati is like zikr in Islam, because sati, which they translated as mindfulness, is remembrance of the sacred scriptures. I don't know if that makes sense to us. Do we understand what I just did? I want a comment. I hope I'm not hanging and I'm not lost. Brother Blaziz? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So are we good to go?
We are good to go. You can continue.
Good. Okay. So so that is where, like I said, they brought mindfulness from, the word sati, and that is remembering, being in the moment, remembering. Of course, in the house we say bringing to attention, bringing to memory. So apparently, he had brought that bringing to the moment from the Buddhist tradition. But again, is this only in the Buddhist tradition? Let's get to explore more. So what exactly is the definition of mindfulness? I'm going to use the definition that Jon Kabat-Zinn himself defined, because after all, he was the one who brought it into the secular space. So I'm going to use his own definition. And his own definition is, mindfulness is keeping one's complete attention to the experience on a moment-to-moment basis in an open and non-judgmental way. Very basic definition. Mindfulness is you keeping your attention, your complete attention, your undivided attention to the experience that you are having on a moment-to-moment basis. That is per time. That particular moment, you are keeping your attention. And how are you keeping that attention? You are keeping it in an open and non-judgmental way. So this is the awareness that arises out of you intentionally paying attention. So you are intentionally paying attention to something, and you are doing it in an open, kind, and discerning way. In mindfulness, we say that the past is gone. The future hasn't arrived yet. The only thing you have is your now, is the current time you are in. That is what you have. So rather than being so engrossed with the past, or being so burdened and grieved with the future that you haven't even seen, that you don't even know whether you will see, pay attention to these precious moments that Allah has given to you. And pay attention to that moment in an open way. So you are not judgmental. You are not looking at it in a very myopic way. You are open, you are paying attention in a very open and non-judgmental way. We know for a fact that time is not infinite for us humans. It's a very, very finite thing. All of us have limited time. And we don't know what will happen in the next minute. We know for a fact that tomorrow will come. but we don't know if it will come for us. It will come tomorrow. Tomorrow will come, but it will not come for everybody, you know. And so in mindfulness is telling us that we should keep our complete attention to the moment. So what I'm going to be doing, let me pause a little to explain what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be telling us what mindfulness is, and I'm not going to try to impute it into Islam. So I'm going to be mixing the both together. And then at the end of the day, I will not really go deeply into it being our tradition. So I would say what the secular says, and then will now relate it to Islam and see how this joins together. I hope that is fine with everybody. So time is what we are in this moment. And whatever we do with our moment is our reality. So how you spend the moments that you have is your reality. I want to say that again. What your moments are is your reality. So it means that if we are in the dunya in every moment, then our reality, our moment is going to be dunya. And if we are in the afterlife mode in every moment, then our moment is going to be afterlife. So your reality is what you spend your time on. Your reality is what you spend your time on. So the question is, are you mindful or your mind is full? Are you mindful or your mind is full? Brother Blaziz, I can't see the screen again. Are you still sharing?
He said I was trying to compress the slide so that I can share it again.
Okay. But I can still go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead. The presentation is heavy, so the loading time is taking time to load. So I want to compress it and I will share. Inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. But everybody is good to go without the slides, right?
Yeah, inshallah. Yes.
Inshallah. Okay,
yes.
Good. Okay. So alhamdulillah. So what do you do with your time? What do you do with time? Allah said, He is time. Literally, in my mind, I'm like, what do you do with Allah? Because if Allah said, He is time, so what do you do with time? And replace time with what do you do with Allah? The people of deep thinking, the people of deep realization will tell you that time is not tangible, but it is substantial. Time will always be there. Again, will it always be there for you? Allah said He is time. He is the eternal time. He is the time that never ends. He is forever and ever and ever and ever. He is infinite. Time is infinite, but we as humans are finite. What do we do with the little finite time that Allah has given to us? What are you mindful of? Are you aware? What are you aware of? Again, remember, mindfulness says the awareness that arises out of intentionally paying attention in an open, kind, and discerning way to your moment to moment. It was Imam Shafi who said in I think when I was listening to one of these lectures on the Risala, he said he learned two things from the Sufis. Time is a sword. If you don't cut with it, meaning if you are not attentive, it will cut you down. So you hear people who say that they want to go and kill time. We don't kill time. What happens? Time kills us. Time literally kills us. Time washes us away. Time fades us. Time uses us. We don't use time. It is time that is using us. because you can see the transition from a small child to a big person. How time will wash away this individual. So again, what are you mindful of? Because most of us spend each day having silent conversations with ourselves. We are constantly distracted from what is really our truth, our reality. What is really our reality? We are constantly distracted. What are we mindful of again? You know, mindfulness is thought that listening, is that kind of listening, that paying attention. You are listening to what is going on in your mind. You are listening to what is going on in your thoughts. It is the mental exercise that you will do for your mind, much like you would do a physical exercise for the body. But mindfulness even extends past the mental exercise. It extends even to the physical exercise. But initially, it is a kind of mental exercise that you do for your mind. We live in, again, like I said, fast-paced life that is very, very stressful. Now, what makes this life fast-paced and what makes it very stressful is because we live in times of a lot of distraction, so much of distraction. There is so much distraction everywhere. We live in an age that I remember growing up, television used to close by the time they do NTA news, by 9 to 10. By 10, you just hear, shing. I don't know the people who lived in those ages. I know I'm not so old, but I know there'll be some people here who lived during that time. By 10, you can't watch anything on the television. It goes blank. So everybody goes to sleep till the next day. And NTA will start working by 4 p.m. So nothing shows on the TV from 10 in the night till 4 the next morning. Nothing shows. So we used to watch TV from 4 to 10. And of course, the news was 9 to 10, which was usually for our parents. So we children, we just allow us to watch from 6 to like 8 and we are done, we go to sleep. But in this day and age, in this television is no longer 24 hours. There is access to phones. We never had that before. Phones is 24 hours. Netflix, this, surfing, you surf the web, Facebook is there, TikTok. In fact, I can't count the number of social media platforms that are there. That, in fact, they become so much and so distracting that I personally had to leave quite a number. So we live in a life where everything is calling for our attention. Everything is calling for attention. In fact, intentionally, people want to get your attention. So in mindfulness, there are two ways. The one who calls for attention and the one who gives the attention. The one who calls for attention is all of those distractions. And then the one who gives the attention is who? Is you. You are the one who gives the attention. Now, who has the control at hand? The one who gives the attention or the one who calls for attention? I usually like my class to be interactive, but this is Zoom, so we don't have a choice. But we can type in the space. Who holds the control? Is it the one who is calling for attention that holds the control, or the one who gives the attention? Anyone wants to tap in?
Please feel free to respond via chat. Yes.
Yes, people should respond via chat so that I can see, I can read it. Okay, yeah, I'll just go ahead. So
one who gives the attention.
Brother Abdulaziz, in case people send message, you can just read it so that I can continue.
So I have this most so Sister Hatu Bello said the one who gives the attention, and then Asma Ogun Shola said the ones who give attention. Aliu Sisi, the one giving the attention. I think everybody so one said the one calling for attention. And,
okay.
The one who gives attention holds the control. Okay. The one who gives the attention. So can you repeat the question again?
Yes, I said, who is in charge of the control? Is it the one who is calling for the attention, the one who wants the attention, or the one who gives the attention? Who should be in charge of the attention? So that was my question. And yes, they were all correct. The one who gives the attention is the one who is supposed to be in control. But the question I want to ask us is, are we actually in control? Because when you solve everything and it takes hundreds of hours from you, is it the one controlling you or you are controlling it? Like one of my we now know, even phones now tell you how many hours you spend on social media or how many hours. And then you look at your phone like on Facebook and you're shocked. Apparently, we are not in control, even though we ought to be in control. And why are we not in control? Because we live in this world that is intentionally taking our control from us with a lot of distraction. Do we know what distraction means? Anyone knows what distraction means? Let me just go ahead because we still have a lot of things to do. Distraction, according to the dictionary, means, of course, first thing first, something that prevents someone from concentrating on something, something that distracts you. So something that prevents you from concentrating on a particular thing is distraction. So that which decides, or divides your attention. That which divides your attention is distraction. Do we know the second meaning? Distraction means extreme agitation of the mind. It means mental distress or derangement. I was surprised when I saw that meaning. Like, distraction is mental distress or derangement. When they say to distraction, they say they mean almost to a state of madness. So when they say somebody loves somebody to distraction, it means you love him almost to you being kolo, almost to you being mental. So distraction is mental distress or derangement. Apparently, is it surprising that we now live in times where there is so much mental distress? WHO, as at 4 or 5 years ago, says 1 out of 4 will go through a mental health issue. Now, they've not done a worldwide study again of recent, but I am pretty sure if they were to do a new study, it will no longer be 1 out of 4 because it's not getting better, it's getting worse. It will be maybe 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 2. So it is not surprising at all that we live in a time of significant mental distress. After all, we live in a time of constant distraction. So constant mental distress. Everything that takes our attention away from our reality is actually taking our attention to mental wahala. That's what it means. It's not surprising at all that people are now in so much mental distress that people are not even confused about who they are. There is so much gender dysphoria, so much that, in fact, it is no longer a mental health issue. It has now become a norm. I was discussing with OP some time ago, Brother Blaziz, when we're talking about all these LGBTQ, how very, very insane some of these ideas are. But when we begin to understand the state of the reality of individuals nowadays, I'm no longer surprised that we are at that point where people are so mentally confused, so mentally distressed, that they don't even know who they are anymore. And I was so intrigued when I listened to Sheikh Hamza talk about these things. And I was like, hey, no wonder, because it's so obvious. It's so obvious that people now have become so distracted away from the real purpose of their creation. So what happens when we get really distracted away from the purpose of our creation? Shaitan takes over. It distracts us from Allah and really living our life and living for the purpose of which we have been created. So Shaitan, Allah has said, the people who fail to remember him, what will happen? Shaitan would take over. So Shaitan has taken over and has confused people so much because we are always living in a state of constant distraction. Most of the I'm a mental health advocate. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I see this in my practice all the time. We've been so distracted from the real purpose of our life, from the real living. We've been so distracted that we don't even understand what is life anymore. What is life? We don't know anymore. And at the end of this thing, we'll go back to ask, what exactly is the preciousness of life? People have lost the essence of living because we are no longer mindful. We don't live in the moment. We always want to distract ourselves because we are constantly in the past, worrying about the past, in fear of the past, and we are constantly grieving about the future, or we are constantly worried about the future. So we are always wanting to distract ourselves from the reality of the purpose of our creation. So I'm not surprised anymore. Again, I ask, what are you mindful of? What are you listening to? What is that thing that is taking your attention? What are you paying your attention to? Because mindfulness is the practice of stepping back from being lost in your thoughts, from being lost in the past, or being lost in the future. Mindfulness is you stepping back from that state. Mindfulness is bringing your attention fully into the present moment. What are you doing now? Is it what you want to do? Is that how you want to live? Is that what Allah wants you to do? Are you mindful of him in what you are doing at this particular time? Again, remember, I'm integrating the two together. Okay. Now, mindfulness is saying, observe whatever arises for you at that moment with awareness and friendly curiosity. And mindfulness is also saying, do this in a non-judgmental way and accept whatever arises for you, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. And what does Islam say? Islam says, nothing will hit you except what Allah has destined would hit you. That was the Prophet ﷺ who said that. He said, even if the whole world was to conspire to hit you with something, if Allah does not hit you with that thing, it will not hit you. And if the whole world was to conspire that something will not reach you, right? If Allah wants that thing to reach you, it will reach you. Isn't this so beautiful? And mindfulness is now saying, pay attention to whatever is happening in a non-judgmental way. Because what? In Islam, we'll say, Allah has destined that it will happen the way it is happening. So when you open your mind to actually appreciate what is happening, whether it is pleasant or unpleasant, when you open your mind and you are fully in the moment, you will be grateful. You will be contented. You will be happy, regardless of what is happening. Regardless of what is happening. And I say that again. You see monks, prophets, spiritual saints, shuyuks, all of those people. It is not that they don't have problems though, but you see them, they are completely in a calm state with all of the problems that are happening. Why? Because they are mindful. They pay attention to the moment. They open themselves to the reality of what is happening. And they appreciate that whatever is happening, it is because Allah has destined that it's going to happen that way. And they know that Allah is the best of planners. He plans these things in the best of ways. The question is, are you now going to be in a state that would remember to always be in the moment with Allah? Or are you going to be in a state where you are in the moment without Allah? that is something for us to all ponder about. Now, I wish, hold on one page. Good. Please, so when we understand this a little bit, I want us to go a little bit in depth. Of course, we are just scratching the surface of mindfulness anyway, because we don't have so much time. But I wanted us to go into the 3 core principles of mindfulness. Next slide, please. And you see, the first time that I saw this, I was like, aha! I was like, oh my God. No, it's okay. It's okay. Go back on the Shapiro et al. You see, Shapiro et al. Is not a Muslim. She's not a Muslim by any yardstick. Jon Kabat-Zinn is not a Muslim. Now, look at this. Look at this. We call it the IAAP. IAA. I said IAAP because of the ISIP. IAA model of mindfulness, which was developed by Shapiro et al. Shapiro, she's a clinical psychologist, and a host of other people. And they said this model is a core model of mindfulness. So when you are practicing mindfulness, this is a model that you want to follow. You see, look at intention, attention, and attitude. Let me just quickly tell us what that means. They say, what is your intention when you are being mindful? What are you paying attention to? And how are you paying attention to? So let me explain that in their own language, and then we'll begin to put it into how Islam sees it. First is the intention. So secular mindfulness says simply knowing why you are doing what you are doing. So your intention is you want to know, why are you doing what you're doing? And you also want to know, what is your personal vision? What are your goals? What are your aims? What are your aspirations? So look at this statement. It is not my statement, though. It is not a Muslim statement. It's a non-Muslim statement. They say, intention sets the compass of the heart. Did you see that? Intention sets the compass of the heart. And what did the Prophet ﷺ tell us? Every action shall be what? Shall be judged by intention. Look at the correlation. What is your intention for doing what you are doing? Allah says He's going to judge you, not by the action alone, but by the intention. So you need to know why you are doing what you are doing. And it means you need to bring to consciousness why you are doing what you are doing. Because sometimes, a lot of times, we don't even know why we are doing what we are doing. Somebody asks you, why are you doing this? Say, I don't know. Sick. I tell people, I say, there is always a reason for everything you do. There is always a reason for every single thing you do. It's only a mindful person who will know the reason for everything they do. If you don't go forward yet, don't go forward yet. If you are really a mindful person, you will know the reason for everything you do. And so the first thing in mindfulness is your intention. And I was like, isn't that the first thing in Islam? Your intention. Jon Kabat-Zinn said, your intention sets the stage for what is possible. They remind you from moment to moment while you are practicing. He said, I used to think that meditation practice was so powerful that as long as you did it at all, you would see growth and change. Alas, time has taught me that some kind of personal vision is necessary. That was deep when I read it. Because your intention actually sets the stage for whatever you are going to do. And as you begin to practice mindfulness, as you begin to really go back to the traditions of Islam, you begin to really understand some of those things. Trust me. Again, like I told you, I love mindfulness. You can eat your cake and have it with mindfulness. Your intention, the first thing. And do you know the beautiful thing about this, again, that I tell people? When you pay attention with intention, life begins to have a lot of meaning. Everything that Allah does, you begin to see, of course, with your own human sense, the reason behind it. You know, when the Oyibo say you have insight, you begin to have deeper insight. So I'm not surprised. Of course, this one is story for another day. I'm not surprised how the Buddhists could have so much insight, because Allah, you know, must have given him that. Now, why I said this is story for another day is, of recent, I got to read and learn that the Muslim traditionalists, as in the Muslim scholars, believe that the Buddhists, some, not all, believe that Buddha was actually Khidr. And the light bulbs in my head went firing. Like, aha, if really the Buddha is Khidr, it makes a whole lot of sense. Because again, from the story we know from the Quran, Khidr was someone that, he wasn't a prophet, but he was someone who Allah had given insight. He had deep insight. He was somebody that, of course, based on all of the things that he did, he had so much insight that he could see some of the things that ordinary human beings could not do. And trust me, when you begin to really practice mindfulness, you will begin to have more insight. You begin to see things in a deeper way. And that is so, so, so beautiful. Sometimes when I study the secular mindfulness, right, when I read it, to me, it just looks like they lifted all their practice and method from the Quran and the Hadith. I just smile at the connection. So when I saw that relationship, that perhaps, you know, in fact, it was Sheikh Hamza Yusuf who said he wrote a whole article on Buddha in the Quran. I was looking for that article. I couldn't, I haven't found it, but I read some other things in line with that. When he said the Buddha in the Quran, and he was talking about Khidr and how perhaps is the Buddha, of course, Allah, only Allah knows, but it looks very, very similar, and how they are Allah. But of course, that's a story for another day, so that's not part of today. But I just wanted us to see why it's beautiful that we begin to learn more about our traditions and begin to really appreciate the things we do as Muslims. Islam is perfect if only we know, if only we have the confidence and the mindset that whatever Islam says you should do, it is perfect. There's a reason behind it. No matter how the Prophet ﷺ lived his life, and how the Sahabas lived their life, and how the Prophet before the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ lived their life, if we appreciate that in all of this tradition is beauty, and we begin to really study it, wallahi, we'll begin to smile at the connections of some of these things. A whole lot of things that, you know, I see from the secular aspect, and then I try to align it with I try to see from the aspect of Islam, and I just smile, and I'm so I'm grateful and in awe of the beauty of the tradition of what we have in Islam. We have everything in the deen. We have everything in the deen, if only we know. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for Islam. So when we understand that the foundation first is intention, the next thing is what? Again, IAAP model. It is still secular I'm talking about it. The next thing is what? Attention. Do we know that almost half of our life, our mind is just wandering? It is wandering aimlessly. It is everywhere, but on something that is important. Almost half of our life. And this is from research. It is not me that said it. 46.9% precisely of the time, our mind is just wandering. And do you know the funny thing? 95% of the time, the thoughts we have in our head is the same. You know what we call rumination? We are always ruminating. We are not thinking. There's a difference between thinking and ruminating. Ruminating, you know, like all these ruminants, you eat food, then you will bring it back and eat it again, bring it back. That's how we do as human beings. Our head is full of rumination. So we think about 12,000 to 50,000 thoughts per day, and 95% of those thoughts are the same. So why are we, again, to my mind, I'm like, why am I wasting my time thinking about the same thing? In fact, not thinking, ruminating about the same thing. when I can use half of that time to do something else that is pleasing to Allah. So in mindfulness, we say, what do you give your attention to? What is constantly running in your, what is constantly running in your mind? Who and what occupies your mind? What is the core of your attention? So learning how to attend to the present moment doesn't mean that you no longer have thoughts. You know, there's this myth that they say when you are a mindful person, you just go, zoom, nothing going on in your mind. That's absolutely not true. You have thoughts going on in your mind. It's not even possible to shut out your thoughts completely. Not in this fast-paced world where where you go, Orishi is happening. Different things are happening. But we can begin to change our relationship with our thoughts. We can begin to change our relationship with our thinking, and we can begin to take responsibility. Now, we actually can begin to rest in the present moment, paying attention to what we are doing, living life the way Allah has said we should live it. So after intention, which is what is your intention of doing what you are doing? It's mindfulness that is saying it too. Now be relating it to the Islam that you know. After knowing what you are doing, having your intention, then the next question is, what are you paying your attention to? Because the beautiful thing about mindfulness is that it doesn't tell you what to pay your attention to. Mindfulness will not tell you that. Mindfulness is just saying, are you paying attention to what you want to pay attention to? Okay. Are you lost in your thoughts? Are you constantly in the past? Or are you constantly in the future? Now, do we remember what I said one of the definitions of distraction is? I said distraction is a thing that prevents someone from concentrating on something. Abi, that which decides or divides your attention. So when we are constantly distracted, what happens? We are constantly giving the power to our distractions. So we are preventing ourselves from paying attention to what we are supposed to pay attention to. Do you also know another meaning, which I didn't say before intentionally? Do we know another meaning of distraction? Let me tell you the third meaning of distraction. Distraction is that which amuses or entertains you or diverts your attention. Divert your attention. That which entertains you is distraction. So people would usually divert their attention into amusement or entertainment, taking away their attention from what they are supposed to keep their attention to. Now look at that very well. What do you give your attention? Do you give your attention to distractions, amusement, play, frivolity, past that has gone, future that hasn't come? What do you pay attention to? Because what you give your attention to determines your reality. I want to say that again. What you give your attention to determines your reality. And we know in Islam that what is Allah asking of our attention? What is Allah asking of our attention? Allah says he wants us to give our attention to him. Because what's the purpose of our creation? We have been created to worship Allah. And how do we worship Allah if we don't pay attention to the things we are supposed to use to worship him? So directly, literally, Allah wants us to give our attention to him. So when you give your attention to distraction, it means you are not giving your attention to Allah. Our thoughts should be around him and the purpose that he has created us for. Our thoughts should be around him and our purpose in life. I'm saying that twice intentionally. Our thoughts should be around him and our purpose in this life, not on endless distractions of amusement and entertainment, or even full-time criminality. You see, why a lot of people fall into criminalities, why a lot of people are living the kind of life they are living, is because they are not mindful. They don't have intention and they don't pay attention. And then, of course, the last one, their attitude to life is horrible. I don't want to name names, but look at the music industry. Look at the beauty industry. Look at the entertainment industry generally. Look at that life. The life of there's no contentment. The life of is all about money, hype, all of that. It just bewilds me on how we've so lost the purpose of creation. So if you understand this thing, you begin to understand how people can be lost in their delusions because they've completely lost the path to God. And your path to God is your mindfulness of him. They've completely lost that. So it's just all about distractions, all about drinking, all about taking psychoactive drugs, all about trying to take your mind away from the reality. People will say, let me drink to relieve my stress. Even Muslims are doing that these days. Auntie, I just take this cannabis to just to take my mind away from reality. Bro, your mind got to be in reality, because that's the only way you can live a purposeful life. These distractions will not make your depression go away. They will not make your anxiety go away. They will not make your addictions go away. It will continue to be there. So wallahi, it's not surprising that mindfulness treats all of these things. The first line of treatment that you would want to use for addiction, for depression, for anxiety, for a lot of mood issues, for a lot of personality disorder issues, do you know what it is? From research, is mindfulness. Mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, and all of its children, like we have in DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, and all of that. All of these therapies have integrated mindfulness into it because they now know that it must be component of your treatment protocol. If you don't put it as a component of your treatment protocol, you're not going to get the best out of it. And I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised one bit about it. And then what is the last one? Again, before we go to the last one of attitude, is to ask, what is attention really? What really is attention? Do we know that attention is also a word for devotion? Attention is also a word for devotion. So your attention is your devotion. What you pay your attention to is what you are going to devote your life to. So if you pay attention to play, fun, and all of that, that will be your devotion. And if you pay attention to Allah, to the purpose of his creation, whether you are a doctor, you are an engineer, you are an architect, whatever it is that you are, and you're using that to tilt the earth. Because, oh God, I was so happy when I heard, I've forgotten the name of the scholar who was talking about the purpose of creation. And he brought out 3 verses from the Quran about the purpose of creation. He said a lot of times, when we are asked that what is the purpose of our creation, the only thing we say is that Allah has created us to worship him. He said that is one of the purposes of creation, but there are 2 other more purposes, and these 2 purposes are in the Quran. And I will just tell us one of it, we can research the third one. The first purpose of creation that Allah created us for is that He said He has created us to tilt the land, to conquer the land, to walk on the land, and to expand the. I'm using my words now. To grow the land, to expand on the land, to make the land flourish. He said that is why Allah has created us on it. To tilt this land, to work with our hands, to make a living, pure living. And it's not surprising that the Prophet ﷺ said the most blessed of what's the word now? The most blessed of occupation. Is it occupation? Sorry, I'm not a scholar, but I do read a lot of these things. So maybe OP can bring us that idea. But the best of handwork, no, the best of occupation, the best of things you could do to make a living.
Round up, because there'll be another lecture. So they're actually waiting for us. So if you can just round up so they can have their own.
Okay, good. Okay, let's quickly rush up. So the best of that is what you do with your hand. What you do with your hand. So you said?
Oh, you can go ahead. Please.
Okay, I thought you were okay. So I thought, okay. So again, what preoccupies you? Now let's quickly go to the next. Okay, before attitude, I wanted us to do this because when I said what preoccupies you, what preoccupies your mind? Zayd ibn Thabit departed from, it was a long hadith, so I just copied it. He asked me about some things we heard from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whoever is focused only on this world, Allah will confound his affairs and make him fear poverty constantly. And he will not get anything of this world except that which has been decreed for him. However, whoever is focused on the hereafter, Allah will settle his affairs for him and make him feel content with his lot and his provision, and worldly gains will undoubtedly come to him. Again, what preoccupies you? Allah has told you what should preoccupy you. So let's quickly go to the last one, which is attitude. Again, what we practice becomes stronger. Mindfulness says, how do you pay attention with the intention that you have? How do you pay attention with the intention that you have? What is your attitude when you are paying attention? Are you paying attention with acceptance, curiosity, non-striving, openness, kindness, letting go, trust, caring, gentleness, and compassion? With this, it doesn't mean you feel happy all the time. However, whatever is coming up and you are experiencing, you are holding it with the best attitude. Whatever is happening is absolutely okay. Attitude. What is your attitude when you are paying attention with the intention that you have? Are you saying, okay, Allah, let me just be looking at you, or something like that? Or you are paying attention with the attitude of love, with the attitude of gratitude, with the attitude of curiosity, with the attitude of kindness, with the attitude of trusting Allah in everything, with the attitude of gentleness to what Allah has created, with so much compassion, with so much caring. Of course, with insight, you begin to understand this aspect very well. Because we are told we have little time, I'm going to just be doing fast on each of those slides. So mindfulness in Islam, I really want to use this to explain something about it. Allah said in the Holy Quran that indeed Allah chose Adam, Noah, the family of Abraham, and the family of Imran above all people of their time. They are descendants of one another, and Allah is all hearing, all knowing. Remember, when the wife of Imran said, "My Lord, I dedicate what is in my womb entirely to your service," i.e., dedicating the child to service in the temple. She was dedicating the child in her womb to the service of Allah in the temple. So she said, "Accept it from me. You alone are truly the all-hearing and the all-knowing." When she delivered the child, she said, "My Lord, I have given birth to a girl." And Allah fully knew what she had delivered. And she said, "The male is not like the female," because apparently service at the temple was hosted by males only. She said, "I have named her Mary, and I seek your protection for her and her offspring from Shaitan, their cause." So her Lord accepted her graciously and blessed her with a pleasant upbringing, entrusting her to the care of Zachariah. Whenever Zachariah visited her in the sanctuary, he found her supplied with provisions. He exclaimed, "Oh Mary, where did this come from?" She replied, "It is from Allah. Surely Allah provides for whoever He wills without limit." I'm reading from Quran 3, verse 33 to 37. Translation was what I read above. Look at this. You know, when we see monks in the monasteries and all of that, before when I was younger, I used to think this was totally, you know, out of norm, out of Islam and all of that, until I began to really read about the traditions of Islam, and I realized that, oh, so from time of immemorial, you know, sanctuaries, temples, monasteries, synagogues, were all the things of the prophets and the saints prior to Islam, and they were all in line with Islam. Look at this Quranic verse. The wife of Imran said she dedicated whatever Allah has in her womb to His service in the temple where they would just stay to remember Allah and worship Allah in the temple. And fortunately, she gave birth to a girl. Although in those days, it was only males that were in the temple worshiping Allah. It was only males that would be practicing meditation and mindfulness in those temples. But she gave birth to a girl. And because she had dedicated that she was going to put the child in the temple anyways, she still took the child to the temple. And Zachariah took care of her in the temple. And she was worshiping Allah and being mindful there. Look at that. Look at that. It is there, you know, but because, so again, it goes back to how come we have lost this tradition that mindfulness wasn't even brought out of Islam, but was brought out of Buddhism, you know. Perhaps, again, we've been so lost in our searching for life that we have lost the tradition of also searching for the hereafter or balancing both. Again, I want to be fast because of time. I know that we just have a very few minutes left. So mindfulness, of course, they call it different names in Islam, in Arabic, whether it is muqaddimah or tafakkur or, you know, all of this is a core practice in Islamic tradition, is a core practice of our tradition, which emphasizes deep reflection, contemplation, and a heightened awareness of the present moment. This was what Mary and all of the people in the temple were doing at that time. Zachariah, that was what he was doing in the temple. That was what Mary was doing in the temple. They were in deep reflection. They were contemplating the signs of Allah, and Allah has said it in the Quran. It's only the what's the word, that contemplate Him and are mindful of Him. They were in a heightened awareness of the present moment. They were not grieved by the past or focusing too much on the future. It was in the present moment, and Allah was sufficing them at what they were doing. Of course, we had read and hadith that also explain that. So this is a concept that is deeply rooted in the Quran and in the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. See, the Prophet, he would usually go to the cave of Hira. What was he doing? He was practicing, he was mindful, he was meditating, he would sit there for days. What do we do in Itikaf? We are, you know, being in the moment, praising Allah, remembering Him, being attention of His presence, and we are being aware of Him. That is mindfulness. That is mindfulness. You know, so it is a concept that is deeply, deeply rooted in the Quran and the teachings of our prophets. And it plays a significant role in our spiritual development as Muslims. The more you deeply reflect on Allah, the more you deeply contemplate his words, the more you deeply contemplate and reflect on his ayahs, you know, on the things he has created, nature, animal, the environment, the more you deeply do these things, the more you get into an heightened awareness of the present moment. Wallahi, the more spiritual you will become as an individual.
Thank
The
you
more
very much.
spiritual you become as an individual. I don't know if this is a good time to stop. You already know what we have in the remaining slides. I don't know if we can call for it to do it on another day, or
Inshallah, we can organize another day.
okay.
Unfortunately, we'd like to listen to you more and more, but I don't want to
Okay.
also affect the other people waiting. And we also
Yes.
need to few time, even if it is 5 minutes for question and answer for those that would like to ask questions.
Yes. So we know that we stopped on slide 15 today. We can continue, inshallah. So please,
Inshallah.
I would like us to stop here, and if any question or any clarification needs to be asked, we can do so, inshallah.
So if you want to ask question, you can just raise your hand using the reaction button. Inshallah, we'll fix another lecture. Inshallah. So they're already asking that, okay, so they are thanking you for the lecture, and someone is saying we should fix another day, inshallah. Okay. Okay, so while we're waiting for question, if there is any, I would just like to appreciate your lecture. And in fact, the way you are talking, and you're also opening my mind to the fact that this mindfulness is, okay, I have a question here. How can we teach our children mindfulness? Okay, so let me just quickly do the summary, and then you can answer that, inshallah. Just, you can start thinking about it. Someone said this is therapeutic. That's nice. Okay, so what I want to say is that, you know, mindfulness, for me, I see that it's something that is vast. And I remember a tradition.
Do you understand?
There is noise from the mic, please. Okay. So I remember a tradition and a this where Anzala was saying that Anzala has wronged himself, something like that, and he went to complain to Umar that something is to Abu Bakr, I think, that something is wrong with him. He feels like a hypocrite. Anytime he is in the presence of the Prophet, he feels completely immersed spiritually and with full attention. But the moment he leaves the Prophet, it's as if the quality of his whole being has completely declined. So Umar said he feels the same way. They went to Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr said, I feel the same way as well. Let us go and complain to the Prophet. So where I'm going at, when they got to the Prophet told them that if I keep you in this state, when you are always with me, it will reach a stage that you can actually you start shaking the angels.
Yes.
And that's to show that we can benefit more. The quality that mindfulness can give is more than what we think about. And also goes to, and the point I'm trying to drive out is attention. When they are with the Prophet, they give all attention because of his being. So even if we cannot really practice mindfulness, if we know someone that is into that mindfulness, we can benefit from them by being their companion. Of course, we know the benefits of being a companion. So it's really enlightening, the intention, the attention, and the attitude to what we do. I listened to, I think Dr. Mohammed is also here. He did an explanation of one of the aphorisms of Ibn Ata'illah, where he was talking about, because you talk about distraction, and the whole many things causes our distraction, up to you talk about the amusement, a whole lot of things, and these are all plans of the shayateens. They will put in your mind different thoughts that will distract you from the main things, and this causes corruption to the heart. So we pray to Allah to help us revive this tradition and always be in the presence of whatever we do. So can you just go to the first question, and I'll be checking the other aspect, or if there's another question. So the first question is
Okay.
about how to teach mindfulness to kids, to our children.
Yes, how to teach mindfulness. It's a whole lot, and it's also easier. You can start with few things in how you relate with them. One thing is, how do you relate with them? How do you mindfully relate with them? So a child is talking to you. Oh God, this is just the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when you were talking to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he would pay full attention to you. He would turn completely to you, listen to you. The way he will pay attention to you, you think you are the most important person in the whole wide world. That is how we can begin to do that for our children. When we pay attention to them, when we listen to what they say, when we relate with them at that level of intention and attitude, they will begin to reciprocate. They'll begin to reciprocate. That's one thing. Two, we can also begin to let them sit in times of meditation. Like some of the apps that I mentioned, like Sabr app, and I think Mindful Muslim, they have some meditation practices for children, Muslim children. They have some. You can begin to let them listen to that. You can also begin to expose them to reflections on the Quran. So you do maybe just read one verse, and both of you would deeply reflect on that. And then you also begin to, because children learn from what they see. Children learn from how we do. If we as adults become more mindful, they will learn from us. What you do is what they will begin to do back. So first thing is, when we learn to become mindful, then we can transfer that to our children. It's a whole lot of course. It's a very, very big and wide concept. But at least just for this short time we have, these are some of the little things you can begin to do, while you can also begin to explore more ways to make children more mindful. Even in the schools, we can begin to actually let children to be more mindful. In fact, in the US, a lot of schools have integrated mindfulness into their curriculum. So they come in the morning, and the first thing they are going to do is to have some mindful moments. What is that mindful moment? They sit on their tables or sit on the floor, cross their legs, close their eyes, and begin to pay attention to some of the parts that Allah has created. So we call them body scan mindfulness moments. So they scan their eyes, scan their nose, scan their mouth, scan the whole of their body, and then say some gratitude for all of that Allah has created. Of course, if it's a Muslim school, but if it's not a Muslim school, they just say gratitude for whatever they have, and then they put their mind into paying attention to whatever they are going to learn for that day, and then they ground themselves. There's what we call grounding meditation. So they ground themselves in that time and that moment, and then they go into class. What has happened is that children who start their classes like these learn better, behave better than children who don't have any mindfulness meditation sessions before going into class. So that's some of the things that people can begin to do to learn
I have another
to
question.
become more mindful in children. Yes, please.
Please, how can we use mindfulness to take our mind or heart from past pain memories? And some people who don't remember the memories of the relationship with them.
Okay, that's also a very broad question too, like the one I just answered, but I can just help with a few things. You see, mindfulness is saying you should pay attention to the present moment, right? The more you pay attention to the present moment, the lesser the power of focus you have in your mind for something that has happened in the past. So because you have lesser brain memory for something that has happened in the past, the lesser the pain you begin to feel. But it takes time. It's not a magic thing. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to keep practicing before you can see the effect. And I want to say that because mindfulness is not something you can just do on your own, you usually would need reminders, you would need a mentor, or you need a teacher. And that's why I really love some of these apps. But of course, you need reminders to keep reminding you to do them. In some of these apps, they have pain meditation, where they help you to relieve some of the pain that you have had. So these are some of the things you can listen to, and it will help you take your mind and your heart from past pain. But if it is really, really something very, very deep, you may need other things to add to that before you can now practice mindfulness to help you resolve some of these things. Sometimes you may need to do what we call RMD, rapid eye movement desensitization, to relieve some of this pain and hurt, which is also part of mindfulness. Or you can also we could also do what we call DBT. So it depends on the level of pain that you feel. But gradually you can start with some of the small mindfulness practice to help you in that aspect.
Some people are asking for the app, those apps. So I will advise that you drop your email address. You can just write in the chat button, chat area, and then you can just reach out.
Yes, please.
For the list of the apps.
Yes, please.
Are you going to do that now? Okay. No, I mean, you can leave your email address so that you can
my own email.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Is it okay?
No problem. I'll do that.
Okay. Okay, I think you send me a direct message. Okay.
Oh, I sent it to you directly.
Yes.
So I sent you email. Any of the two can start.
Okay. Okay, I'll be sharing the email now.
Inshallah.
So someone asked similar question that can we have some practical tools? Okay, this is different. Can we have some practical tools and exercises?
Yes, we can in the next session, inshallah. Since we have said we'll have another time, like I said, I was telling you, I said, I don't know how 1 hour will be enough for us to deal with this thing, Usually, I usually start my mindfulness classes with a practical tool at the beginning and a practical tool at the end of it. But because of the timing was why we couldn't do that at the beginning. But inshallah, if we're called to do it again, if I come again, inshallah, I'm going to do some practical tools that we are going to do. In fact, there and then you begin to see the impact of mindfulness, because mindfulness is, again, like we say, it's like chocolate. You need to eat it to appreciate it. When they say, tell me how chocolate tastes, I don't know how to explain to you. I don't know if, you can't really explain to someone until they actually have the experience themselves. That's what mindfulness is. So I completely agree with you that we do need to have some practice sessions where we can practice some of these things. So probably in the next time we're going to have, we'll be able to do that, inshallah, biqudratillah.
Yes, someone asked about the recording. Yes, inshallah, it will be sent like a broadcast when we upload it on YouTube. So it's been recorded. So I thank everyone, and I think this is officially the end of the meeting. And I want to appreciate our lecturer, and may Allah reward you for this presentation. And we are very grateful. Hopefully, we have the second section. Hopefully, inshallah, we'll arrange that and have a discussion fully. So with this, I'll just say. May Allah accept this from us and make it beneficial. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The brother who is asking for my WhatsApp number